Hello, everybody. This is Nikki from Motherhood Unfiltered. It's going to be okay. And today's guest is Dr. Vick, and he is a former certified pediatric chiropractor who has become a business mindset coach. He is the author of three books, and the most recent is Decoding the Matrix, which has already come out. It's been out since May. He's the creator and the owner of the Mindful Experiment podcast, and it's been ranked the top number 1% globally from listennotes.com. So he has a unique and diverse background that allows him to help his clients become more whole and lead a more meaningful life. So, but before we bring him on, I just want to remind everybody, if you're listening to the podcast, please go to Spotify or iTunes and rate. If you are watching this on YouTube, please comment, like, and subscribe. And if you're already doing that because you're awesome, please share this with someone you love. So let's get Dr. Vick on here and find out what he is all about. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me on.
So just tell us a little bit about why you started in pediatric chiropractor and then you decided to refocus your whole career in life.
Literally was like that. Yeah, I first started out actually, I was a chiropractor, I was more holistic. I was like a holistic chiropractor. I did nutrition. I did all these other things. And
Hmm.
after 5 years, I hit a financial peak after following all the advice of what you hear in business about, grinding and hustling and sweat equity,
Hmm.
all this effort and whatnot. But I was tired of being burned out every 4 to 6 months. It didn't make sense to me because I love what I do. I
Yeah,
love what I do to being a chiropractor, but I didn't understand
right.
why I was being burned out. I was unfulfilled when I got to the level of the money I was making. I was like, this is a lot of money. Why am I not happy? I thought I'd be like very happy with this. I thought I'd be satisfied, and I wasn't.
Right. We
I
should
literally,
be.
to- we should be. And I told my wife, I even looked at her. I said, if this is how it is, I don't know if I want to do this. Like I'm
Yeah,
literally thinking of changing. And then I
right.
was like, you know what? Let me rethink. Let me settle. And this is where I started to implement what I teach in business coaching because what I started to do is saying, you know what? I'm going to ignore everything that I've been told. I'm just going to go, if
Hmm.
I'm truly the creator of my life, I'm going to choose the practice I want to have and why I want to have it. So I decided to shift gears, go into pediatrics. At the time, my
Hmm.
practice was only 5% pediatric volume base. And in 6 months, we raised up to 48%. And I had a passion to go to serve pediatrics because I started to hear, I was listening to research and things about how children's health is declining, chronic illnesses are on the rise in children.
Yeah,
You look at ADHD, you look at autism, you look at
right.
sensory processing, you look at speech or learning disabilities. I mean, it's just on the rise. And
Yeah.
I was just not okay with that. So I'm like, you know what? Not in my town, not in my community. I'm going to, if anything, I'm going to shift gears and go that route. And what I wanted to do was get to the root. I didn't want to just help those children. I wanted to make sure, at all costs, as much as I could, help pregnant
Hmm.
women so they can have easier labor, so then it can help be easier on the
Hmm.
child, and then help them both through it. But even more important, help before when the child's just a thought. And how do we prepare the home to
Wow.
do all that? So that was where my mission was. But
Yeah.
what ended up after I applied all this stuff and realized I didn't have to work as hard. I didn't coin this term, but I call it effortless action that leads to effortless success. And what happens is I started to realize that I was working way less. I
Yeah.
wasn't stressing about the business at all. I didn't even like if we were having our dip, I just go, that's fine. My energy is not in the right place. My focus is not in the right place. Let me shift that and let me just continue
Hmm.
doing what I do, but make sure my vibration's in the right place. And then all of a sudden,
Wow.
an idea or a person I meet or something comes up, and I'm like, this is all aligning, great, and it would just take care of itself,
Yeah.
which is so much easier and so much less stressful and kind of like how life it should be in a certain way. But
Yeah.
so after a couple of years of that, I was like, I always had an interest in coaching, so it was starting to
Right.
come back to me. So I started doing some group coaching for entrepreneurs in 2018 at the end of it, and I
Cool.
did that, and I've been doing that since. And then eventually, um, I got to a point in my career where I was like, my reach, as much as I had a good big practice, I didn't
Hmm.
have the impact I wanted. in my community. I mean, I was making an impact in my community, but when you look at the number and the percentage and all this stuff, I was like, that's way too small. I want to play big,
Yeah.
or at least give a shot to go as big as I can. And
Right.
so my wife and I actually moved. This is what made me make the full switch. I'm from Chicago originally, and we just moved to Knoxville, Tennessee last year, at the end of last year. And it was one of those things where that's where I was like, we're gonna let go of this, and I'm gonna focus fully into coaching, and
Mhm.
because in that way I can create a bigger reach, and then be able to shift people's mindsets. Because when we can do that, you shift their whole entire life. And the coaching I do is not just strictly on business or money; it's strictly
Mhm.
your life. How do we help you to lead a more fulfilled life from the deepest resource, or the deepest possible. I call it bringing the kid back out in you. And because if you think of kids, they're in the pure state of joy and bliss, right? They're just so happy and so excited about life, and they're imagining, their imagination runs wild. There's no one telling them, well, there might
Yeah.
be people telling them no, uh, but helping
And they
adults
have no
return back to
cares
that.
in the world.
No, they just care about what they care. They just care about what they want to do and experience, and they don't care about. They're not. Oh, this isn't. That's weird. They're gonna be like, I don't care. This is what I want to do, and it's getting it. It's
Right.
getting entrepreneurs. It's getting adults and humans to get back to there in a very loving way, where it's like, that's great if someone does that, but this is what matters to
Mhm.
me, and and
Right.
helping them learn first what do you really want, and then showing them
Right.
how you can create that in your life.
I just think that's amazing because I feel like we've, kind of gotten into this rat race mentality. And then, and people are just used to it. Like this is just the way it is. And this is just how my life is. And, we don't need to accept that. And when a pandemic came along, people started, like, it put a roadblock on it. And they're like, wait a minute, my whole life's been turned upside down. I don't have to live like this. So tell me about this be do have and how many are doing it backwards.
Yeah, I learned this concept in chiropractic school, and it was something that it really shocked me. I was really in awe when I thought about it, because I'm like, they're like the be do have principle, and I'm like, what the heck does be do have? And I started learning and listening about it, and then I'm like, oh my god, I'm doing it backwards. And then I started to think about my upbringing, people I grew up with, and
Mhm.
just how they talked in certain ways. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, that's a trap, because they're doing the same thing. I see where I got it from, and
Oh
it's
God.
something that we think we have. Now, here's an example. We in it goes so the have do be is what most people do, which is backwards to universal laws, the way the universe
Mhm.
works, nature, and so forth. And I'll explain that in a minute. But how many times have you heard someone say, if I had $1 million and I can do this and be this, if I had this, I can do this, if I had that, I
When
can
my
do this.
ship comes in.
Right? Or even in relationships, if I had this type of a partner, then I would be, or this type of, whatever, then all
Yeah.
of a sudden my life would be better. And
Yeah.
we do that. We all have done that. I know I do. Sometimes I still do it today, where I'm like, oh, I got to catch myself there. And that it's so backwards thinking, because the way the universe works, the way the law of the
Mhm.
universal laws work, is that you have to be that beingness first. You have to be that person. What is it to be? If you want to be a millionaire, what does a millionaire? What is the beingness of a millionaire? What's their consciousness like?
Oh,
How do they? Are they
yeah.
waking up worrying about debt all the time? Or are they focusing on opportunities? Are they focusing on wealth? Are they focusing on growth? Are they focusing on abundance? What is
Right.
their? There's a mindset to that, but there's also an energy and a vibration to it. And
Yeah.
when you're being that person, coming from that energy, that vibration, then when you
Mhm.
do something, it's going to all of a sudden align you to have that what it is. So if you're being a millionaire consciousness mindset, or consciousness, let's just leave it there,
Mhm.
level, then whatever you do when you're coming from that place will align you to achieve to be that millionaire. So you have to be the person first before you can do the things in that. And
Mhm.
again, so many times people are doing the opposite, and I've seen it so many times, even in entrepreneur world, so much, where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I just have to have that, or I have to do this, or my business
Mhm.
isn't doing well, so I have to do Facebook ads, so then I can do this, do or play at this level, and so
Yeah.
forth. We're always looking outside ourselves. That's another aspect to it, that
Mhm.
relates to this, instead of just focusing on us, understanding how
Mhm.
powerful we are, understanding how this whole universe works, can
Right.
be a massive game changer.
So, so what if you don't know how to be like a millionaire, and that's what you want to be?
So you don't. It's real simple in a way because when you think of kids, and I'll use this often because this is an analogy that, some people
Hmm.
say, well, I don't know, or like, how do I be in that beingness? I don't even know how to be. And I'm like, well, you know how to be. You
Yeah.
were like that when you were a kid. You were being all the time. You weren't doing, you were
Hmm.
being, and then you just acted things out. How many times
Right.
thought you were a princess, or I thought I was a soldier, or I thought I was this, right? I wasn't that, but I was being what it was like to be that. So one of the things I make real simple and try to get out of the thinking mind is
Hmm.
to just feel what you feel that makes you, what's something that makes you feel good, right? What's a vibe that you can feel that you're like, wow, I love this vibe, or I love, it makes you feel good. It brings up high emotions of
Yeah.
joy, bliss, love. And that's all you have to embrace yourself in. And then from
Right.
there, as you're raising that vibe, then you're just setting out to the universe. I can see myself being in that state. Or that's one way of doing it. The other way is very
Uh-huh.
similar, but it's seeing yourself as what you think someone who has a millionaire lifestyle or who is a millionaire, seeing yourself in that state and then taking those high vibrational emotions and pulling it in. So this is where I do.
Right.
So you're thinking of an event or something that, like for me, I just had became a first time dad. I had my daughter about a month ago,
Well,
and so getting it.
congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been such a joy. I love it, and I wish we did it sooner. But talking about this though, like if I have to anchor myself into a good feeling, I just
Hmm.
visualize me holding her, and then bam, there's that immense love I have for her. This just I can't even put
Yeah.
words, that feeling, right? And
Yeah.
so I have that feeling. I know what it is. I know what it feels like. So then I just
Hmm.
think, okay, if I want to be a millionaire, what is it? Why is that important? What's that going to, what's the being, right? So how am I walking? How am I moving? What am I doing?
Hmm.
What's my lifestyle look like? And then I just tie that wonderful emotion and bring it to that experience and say, that's the feeling I will have. And
Oh
then when
my
we're doing that, you're
goodness.
raising your vibe. When you raise your vibe, you
Hmm.
create more magnetic forces to pull that towards you. And the thing that we get locked, or we trip over, is that we think then there has to be this doing or things we have to do, and really just focus on
Hmm.
what that is and get your vibe. Just keep connecting to that and know
Wow.
that this is what I want to create. Now, when you do that, this is what I call effortless actions that lead to effortless success. And here's why.
Right.
Because when you tap into this emotion and you get to that good vibe, you get that feeling, you're visualizing, you're seeing it, you're doing all that.
Hmm.
When you're at that vibe, the ideas that you need to get to that point, or the people, the circumstances and situations are going to help guide you to there, will
Hmm.
come to you. They will come. You'll have this, and you'll take what's called the universal law of the law of inspired action. You're going to feel inspired to do something. You're going to feel inspired to
Wow.
take action, right? Because
Hmm.
now all of a sudden there's something pulling you, to
Yeah.
say, "Oh my God, I should do this. I need to. For some reason, I have to do this. I have no reason why. I don't understand, but I have a deep feeling. I know this feeling when I get it. I have to do this." And then you do it, and then all of a sudden things just work out. Now, I'm not gonna say
Oh
it's
my
always gonna happen
goodness.
instantaneously, right? But
Right.
as you keep doing this and you get used to this, then all of a sudden that the things that you choose, like you're doing, is in alignment
Yeah.
to what you want to experience. And
Wow.
so this is where
So
we
it's
don't get
something
into.
that you have to like practice doing on a regular basis, right? So
Yeah,
I
because
can't do it once and be magically this awesome person that I think I want to be, right?
the thing is this: you have limiting beliefs that are going to hold you back. You have past conditions,
Yeah.
or what I call baggages, that are going to
Right.
hold you back, right? So when you
Right.
think of, like, let's say, if you let's say you make 50,000 a year, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I want to make 1 million a year, and that's a huge gap. You're going to have some inner critics in your mind saying, oh, are you crazy? Look at how many times you tried to do this. Look at this. Look at that. Look at this. So that brings
Yeah.
your
Self
vibe down.
sabotaging.
Exactly, right? So then the key is just like saying, okay, well, forget that. I'm just going to get my vibe right. I just need to get back
Hmm.
into that right vibe. And just knowing that this, and sometimes your mind may go, oh yeah, this vibe stuff. I have this happen to me sometimes where it's like, oh, you're trying to go into that vibe. You're just trying to ignore that you can't do this. You just think it's going to be that. I'm like, would you calm down? Um,
Give
you got to
yourself
give
a
it a
talking
name.
to.
You got to give it a name, right? So sometimes I'm like, I call it stinking thinking, but sometimes I'll say, I got the monkey in my head again. Get out of my head. You're not part of me. Um,
Right.
but it's one of those things, you just refocus. And a lot of times what our mind's going to do is, because you're going into uncertainty, you don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know the path it's going to take there. So your
Yeah.
brain
Uh-huh.
tries to take over and be like, hey,
Right.
no, this is how we should do it, or this is what we should do, or so-and-so said this, or look at this successful
Hmm.
person. And that's not, I'm not saying that's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that works, but when you're
Yeah.
looking at creating the path that you want to create, that you want to choose, that you want to experience, it may
Right.
be a little different. It may show up a little different. There's some similarities, but there may be something totally different that you need to go this route instead of that route, or do it this way versus that way. I mean, that's something I experienced when I made the transition in my office. I also, one of the things I did was I stopped listening to successful chiropractors to a certain degree. I still listen to them, but
Yeah.
I was tired of what they were telling me, or what they did, or what they said was successful. And I was like,
Hmm.
you know what? No, I'm going to define what success means to me. I'm going to
Yeah.
define what this is going to be for me. I don't have to
Right.
sacrifice. I don't have to do this. I'm going to choose what matters most for me. I had a coach kind of
Right.
help me with that a little bit. And that's where I didn't have to, like, if you're a family wellness practice, most of the time you have to work weekends. I was like, I'm not going
Yep.
to work weekends. Well, if you're only going to be available 3 days a week, it's kind of hard for people to accommodate to your patients. You're making it harder. I was like, I'm going to attract the patient. So I could have got stuck. Here's this, and I share this for a reason, because I could have got
Yeah.
stuck in the scarcity mindset, thinking, oh, you know what? That's right. I'm creating limitations. I'm making it harder for people to commit. But there's another side to that coin that says, but guess what? I'm also only going to attract the patients that can fit my schedule. I'm only going to attract
Yeah.
the ones that can work with me. And
Yep.
once I started to see getting into that vibe and all this other stuff, we shifted our hours, and then all of a sudden in the beginning it didn't work, because you usually take a little bit of a hit in the chiropractic
Hmm.
office. For some reason, when you make a change, 10, 15, 20%, you'll see a little dip, and then it rebounds back. What
Right.
was always interesting is, you're breaking records 6 months later, and I'm like,
Yeah.
hold up, I just did a 50% reduction in office hours and this and that, and I'm hitting records 6 months later. But it was, again, how did that happen? What it was is exactly what I shared. It wasn't anything else.
Yeah.
It was just visualizing, getting in a good vibe, getting my mind right, getting my vibe right,
Right.
and showing up in the office that way too, because I visualized how I wanted to be in the office. What was
Yeah.
that experience I wanted to see? How I want to interact with moms and kids. And sorry, dads, there were some dads, but most 99% of the time I was working with moms when it came to kids.
Right.
Um,
So
but being able to,
did you write these down? Like, did you write these goals down so that when you were having a moment of, why am I doing this? You had something to look at, or was it just something that you had in your head, that you would just, you know, visualize?
for me, I'm very visual, so visualization
Hmm.
works the best for me. There is
Gotcha.
a power to writing things down, and I'm a big fan of
Hmm.
that. I've done that kind of work. It only works really well for me when I was like, if I'm in a school setting, like taking
Mm.
notes. I would write a
Yeah,
gazillion notes. Like, everyone's on a computer doing notes, and I'm writing notes. And they're like, "Why are you writing?" I'm like, I don't have to study as much then.
I
Um,
know.
that would work for me. But no, visualization, because it's just something that I would tap into and visualize and see, and I can get really, really, really clear. I know that's not the word I want to use, but
Yeah.
specific, I guess, in what I'm seeing, how I'm feeling.
Focused. Yeah.
Yeah, focus in there. And then I'm also very feely, like my body. I pick up sensations from my body, so it's like getting into my body and feeling that emotion in my body in that
Right.
moment. So it's projecting the future of what you want to see, but then
Uh
also
huh.
bringing in the present moment with my body, so I can feel, where does that show up? How does that feel within me? So that
Yeah.
way, then I know, like, yeah, I'm here. I'm at the right place. This is how I'm aligned. This is where I'm aligned to the vision, and
Uh
so
huh.
that feeling is what guides me, rather than thinking, oh, I'm here because of XYZ, because look what I'm seeing. No, no, no.
Right.
I'm here because of XYZ, only X, because I feel this. So
Yeah.
it's a different way of looking at things.
It
Um,
sure is. I'm really interested in it. So let's switch to your book. So what is this Matrix? Because when I hear Matrix now, I think of the trilogy and the movies. And and what is it that we need to be aware of when we think about it?
Yeah, so the matrix, in a nutshell, if I just put it very simply, is the human collective consciousness. So for those who may
Uh,
not be like, what the heck is he talking about? Um, I've gotten that before. It's basically, if you average
He's
out,
way out there, people.
yeah, exactly, right? So if you average out, like, all the humans of this world, and
Yeah.
everything that they're focusing on, their emotions they tie to, and the thoughts they have, it's a certain
Hmm.
number that comes up. Who know? We don't know
Right.
what that number is, but let's say there's a number to it. That's their
Hmm.
consciousness level. So when you average out all their consciousness levels, that ends up being the human collective consciousness. I just coined it the term matrix. Now,
Mm.
The matrix is, there's also sub matrices that build up to create the matrix, right? So we have the human collective consciousness, which all of us, all the humans on Earth, but then you also have North America and Africa and Australia and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then you
Mm-hmm.
have the states, countries, towns, so forth. And it gets all the way down to the micro, which is you and me. And
Mm-hmm.
so the thing about being aware of the matrix is that it has its own vibrant consciousness level because it's the average of all humans. Now, with
Mm-hmm.
the crab effect, some have called this lobster effect. Some said, I've heard someone that was just talking to like, that's the crab in the barrel effect. And I was like, we'll go with the crab effect. I'm going to go this route. But it's like if you had three crabs in a barrel and one tries to crawl
Mm-hmm.
out, the other two are going to pull it down back in.
Yep.
And so you may have heard the term, you may have heard this universal law called the law of association, which states, or you
Yeah,
may
I
have heard
think
it in
so.
a different
Yeah.
way. You take the five people that are closest to you, average them out, that's you. Some people say that. And so the
Okay.
law of, so the law of association is you're gonna resonate with with people that let's say the five closest people that you're with. But the law of
Mm-hmm.
association also resonates with the matrix, because if we're not setting our vibe and our intention every single day, then what ends up happening is the matrix going to pull us into what the average is. And another way that you say this is, if you don't plan for your day, the world's going to plan it for you. Well, that world
Yes.
is the matrix. And so it's going to bring you to average. It's going to bring you to all the same experiences that everyone else is experiencing. And you're not truly, and when that happens, you're not really expressing your true potential,
Yeah.
your true soul, your true light, your true essence,
Right.
because you're
Right.
becoming muted, you're being muted and becoming more average, so you don't stand out like your unique self. And so that's the essence of what the matrix is. It's not good or bad. So a lot of times people say, well, it drags me down, that's not good. And I was like, the matrix is just, it's just is, the
Mm-hmm.
earth has its
Yeah.
own matrix, animals have their own
Mm-hmm.
matrix, each species,
Mm-hmm.
the solar system has it, the universe has it, everything vibes at different, at its own, from the average of all. So
Right.
when you look at it from that perspective, then the beautiful thing about the matrix itself is that, or ourselves, is that when we do step out of the matrix and we continue to
Mm-hmm.
put the intention out there to keep stepping and staying above it in that way, raising the vibe, in other words, when we
Right.
raise our consciousness level, we also not only raise ourselves, we not only just raise the matrix, but we also have the
Mm-hmm.
ripple effect around us that now all of a sudden allows people to do the exact same thing. This is an unspoken word. It's invisible. They don't know this. They're unconscious
Oh
because
wow.
of because
Yeah.
and so what we start to do then is we start to create like an awakening, in other words, and
Yeah.
that will start to raise the matrix up. And when the matrix
Mm-hmm.
rises, then there's different experiences humanity will have. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you look at where the matrix is now, based on Dr. He doesn't call it the matrix, by the way, but Dr. David Hawkins' work in his book Power versus Force, he'll talk about consciousness levels, and he'll say that the Earth has never really been. It might be wrong here just a little bit, but majority of
Mm-hmm.
Earth in the last 2,000 plus years has never been supporting life. It's always been under life, and that's a level around 200. Then in his work.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? Is that when we are at a level that we're not supporting life, we're going to see the outcome of that. So that can be
Mm-hmm.
leaders, that can be diseases, that can be endangered species, forests, what we're doing to the earth,
Yeah.
diseases with humans. And if you look at the world, we're kind of in that state. I mean, it's just getting more
Yeah.
diseases. Things are getting worse and worse. Forests are
Mm-hmm.
shrinking, and all these different things are happening. But a lot of times we get, again, going back to effortless action that leads to effortless success. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times we feel like we have to do so much. Well, this is bad. We need to take it. Man, we got to change this up. We have to do this. But
Right.
in reality, if we just change ourselves and
Yes.
raise our vibe, then we raise the matrix above that point. There's going to be technologies, there'll be companies,
Yep.
and maybe even yourself, the individual who comes up with
Mm-hmm.
something that's going to radically change and support life more. And we'll start to change everything that we see. And so in my book, I talk a lot about like the problems we have that we see in society is
Yeah.
we make it seem it's so like it's just because of this and this is why the issue is. But really it's a vibrational thing. And if we can
Yeah.
learn to understand it from that place, we're not only changing ourselves to help us to express our light more, to
Mm-hmm.
have find more fulfillment, but we're also helping others do the same thing.
Wow. That I mean, we could be here for hours talking about that. I don't I don't know where to begin with that. I think that that is a very great way to explain how life is, and if you are not being intentional or resetting or refocusing your vision, then you're going to get sucked back in there. and they're going to influence you, not you influence them, with the people around you. And I'm just blown away by that. But I really like that. I'm trying to think of um,
Well, I
where
could
to go
comment
to
on
next with that.
I could comment on something you said though that adds to it because you brought up a good point.
Mhm.
And that is you said about the focus, right? And the matrix is always influencing. And so it's always,
Yeah.
and even like I said in myself is going into the
Mhm.
business world and following chiropractors and studying entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
self-help, personal development. I was looking at all that. I got conditioned and thinking this is how success
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
yet I did get success, but at the same token, there was a big payoff I had to do. And then I decided to choose what
Yes.
success meant to me. Now, the point I'm trying to make is the matrix is influencing all of us. It conditions our minds. It's programmed into our
Mhm.
subconscious. But the key thing is that you brought up about focus is that those who can focus more and stay
Mhm.
focused are
Mhm.
less able or not, or they're more resistant to being influenced by the matrix, where those
Yeah.
who do not
Yeah.
focus well, who don't keep centered in some way, shape, or form, they're
Right.
easily manipulated or controlled or I should say influenced by the matrix.
Right. Yeah, I can think of several times in my life where I have just let the environment around me just run my life, and I'm like, how do I get out of this? How did I let this happen? And so it's just something that I had to intentionally work on. I if I was in a situation and I didn't like that situation, then I had to work on changing it, changing myself. You know, I can't make people do things, you know, or react to me in a particular way. But if I change the things within myself and I'm more positive, and working on the things that are wrong about me, then that has a positive influence on the people around me. And I really love that. I think that is such an important thing that we need to tap into because I feel like our culture is turning into a blame, a blame game. It's this person's fault or it's this group of people's fault or, you know, like you said, they're doing the have first instead of the be. And it's only going to change if we worry about ourselves and control what we can and can't do. You know.
Yeah. I mean, and it's one of those things too. When we blame, we actually are not acknowledging how powerful we really are, how we can
Yeah.
really shift things. Because a lot of people say, well, if you're blaming, you need to take self responsibility and so forth. But
Right.
it's understanding too that you create your world and what you live in, and so
Mhm.
um, you can be influenced, and that will drag
Mhm.
you. And you can see that. I use COVID as an example in my book because it was one of
Yeah.
those things where no matter where you stand on it, the thing I always get annoyed by is when you share a different story or you share different things outside the narrative, and that gets
Mhm.
ridiculous. That gets humiliated. It gets discredited. There's a label throw on it and all that. That's always a red flag for
I
me.
know.
But it's like we do that in everything. But it's one of those things where I
Right.
was just like, I use that as an example. Like, look how many people all of a sudden will defend the narrative
Yeah.
rather than be like, let me just listen to other stories. Maybe let me just be open minded, not saying it's truthful. Let me just
Yeah.
listen. Instead, it was
Right.
like, no, this person, as soon as you heard something, it's like, that person's this or that person's like this. And
Yep.
when you think about that, that's conditioning because now what happened
Yes.
is they've been conditioned and now they have a belief of this is how it
Mhm.
should be. Right. In the world that I'm in, a lot of people have beliefs and don't realize that their beliefs dictate how they look at things. So if they
Yeah.
believe that, nutrition like coffee's a great example. I can't tell you how many times I see this year I've been seeing coffee get bashed like crazy. Last year it was all good stuff, but
Yeah.
I always, it's one of the things where like people sometimes go, well, okay, coffee's just bad, that's the research. But some people will be researching and trying to prove that, and I'm like, well, you have a belief that you think coffee is bad, that's why you're finding only research that is bad. Well, that's not true, I can't find anything
Right.
that's good. And I'll be like, you're just not looking for the good because you have a belief that coffee's bad, so you're only going to focus on what's bad. And
Right.
this happens in
Right.
so many different ways. Um, the power of beliefs, let's just say that. But
Yeah.
but again, it's coming back to then, what really, asking certain questions, or like looking at, trying to become aware more of what,
Uh-huh.
how you've been conditioning, understanding there's a huge influence, taking time to just let me disseminate the information for what matters most to me. And what do I feel that I think it may
Right.
be, right? Not thinking feel. Because sometimes you can think and be like, well, I think I think though this is where it should go. I feel that feels good. It's more of
Yeah.
like, it's a calling, it's a pull. And all of a sudden you're just like,
Yeah.
I feel like this is what it really is. And then
Right.
supporting yourself, because a lot of times when you do feel that, most of the time you're going to well, I'm not saying you're going to go against anything, but um, you may find kickback or resistance in some way, shape,
Yeah.
or form. You may create self-doubt with
Yep.
yourself on that. And this is
Mm-hmm.
why I work so hard with people to get into a feeling and master it. Get your mind behind it. What I mean by mind
Mm-hmm.
is your ego, to know what that feels like. So every time the mind goes, because you got to involve it. If you don't involve the ego, the mind's going to be
Yeah.
like, forget this. But when you can say, hey, this feeling right here, I want you to memorize this. This feeling, this means that this is when I take action. This is when I'm in alignment.
Yeah.
This is when it's something.
Right.
This is us moving forward. And the mind will go, all right, ego will be like, all right, cool, I got it. You involved me in it. Thank you. And then you built this. You have to build the neurocircuitry to develop that. But once you get it in place, then all of a sudden it's like, hey, that feeling, this is guiding me this way. This is pulling me this
Yeah.
way. Instead of thinking so much. And I say that so much because I was like that. And I know
Mm-hmm.
the overthinking that can come from things.
Yep.
And I know the other side of it, where you can just be like, it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. Here's what I need to focus on. And I had a friend of mine like 14 years ago. This is how she lived her life 15 years, 13 years ago. And
Mm-hmm.
she was always like, it's all going to work out. I'm like, you don't have this. This is not happening. Money here, blah, blah. I'm like, you got to be doing. She's like, honey, she's like, I'll just focus on my vibe. Everything's going to work out for me. I swear to you, everything on my life, it has blown my mind. I look back now, I said, I wish I just said, instead of fighting you, I wish I sat back and just said, you know what? Teach me, show me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she tried. She gave me a book and it told me to trust your vibes and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
I read it and I was like, okay, that's cool, but that's still not going to help with what I got going on. That's how stuck I was. And
You
now
had
it's
to
like,
figure it out for yourself.
exactly. But I just wasn't at the vibe. See, vibration's everything, because I wasn't at that
Yeah.
vibrational level to
Mm-hmm.
take in that information that book was really trying to tell me. I was stuck
Right.
at a different
Right.
level. So, and that's the thing about vibration levels too. You'll see the opportunities come, or you'll recognize the
Mm-hmm.
opportunities when you're at that vibration level. When you're not, you're going to miss them. You'll
Mm-hmm.
totally miss them because you're not at that vibrational state.
So what do you do when you're going headstrong and you're doing awesome and you feeling the vibrations, and then you're like, then you start doing the imposter syndrome or self-sabotaging, and you're like, I should be doing more by now. Is that where you just go like, no, wait a minute, pull your collar up and you're like, pay attention, you're doing good. I mean, what do you tell people when they get that way?
I'm very well known for that. You can ask my wife. My wife's like, you're never satisfied. I'm like, well, I have a big hunger in life, but or like, I need to be there. I should be there by now. I don't know why it's taking so long.
Yeah.
I get into those states of mind too myself. And the advice I give
Right.
always is, just first acknowledge it. It's fine. Just take a deep breath. Acknowledge, hey, you think there's an expectation that's not being met. That's why that's there. But
Yeah.
what you can do, and what I like to do, is just go, okay, like, accept it. Like, you don't want to ignore it. You want to accept that it's there. This is how I'm
Right.
feeling. I accept it. I still
Right.
love myself, but I'm feeling, right? So I'm getting this feeling. So there's a beingness to you, and then there's the
Uh-huh.
thoughts of where you are. When you have a discord
Uh-huh.
between the two, you get a lower vibration. And so, because our inner beingness, right? Do you feel like you're capable of doing anything, or do you feel like you're not capable of doing everything? I'm
I'm in
assuming you'll say,
between.
really? Okay, we're gonna work on that. You know, because it's like, a lot of times it's that, right? That's a beingness, and then there's the thought process to it, right? And
Uh-huh.
do you really, like, if you let me change the question then. Do you feel that if you put your mind to it, and you get really focused, you can accomplish what you're focusing and putting your mind to?
Yes.
So it's the
Yes.
same question. It's just phrasing those words around a little differently. And so it's a yes. You're like, yes, I can do that easily. So that's a beingness. That, right? But then
Mm-hmm.
internally. But then there's the other side, the thoughts coming in and inner critic and all these other things. And when we have a discord between the two, we get a low vibration because it's all of a sudden going to be bringing those, wow, something's off, something's not right. And we don't
Mm-hmm.
trust, we don't have faith in ourselves. So what I always do is
Right.
like first acknowledge, accept, and then I just go, okay, once I've done that, now let me go ahead. Now there may be things I need to learn from this too. So I'm not a cookie cutter
Mm-hmm.
kind of advice guy. So because each
Mm-hmm.
situation is different for everybody,
Right. Yeah.
sometimes I get that feeling, and that's a limiting
Mm-hmm.
belief showing up. And then it's
Mm.
like, okay, I got to do some work on this. Maybe I got to go meditate a little bit on it. Maybe I need to journal or
Yeah.
do automatic writing and see where that is, where
Right.
it's coming from. What do I need to learn from this, right? Why is it showing up now? Because a lot of times emotions, especially if they come in patterns, there's
Yeah.
limiting beliefs behind that need to come up at the surface to heal or shift or change or let go and create new ones. So that way
Right.
you can raise your vibe because those things are holding you down, excuse me, and not allowing you to get to that vibration you need to get to. So sometimes it's
Wow.
like that. But if it's just like, let's say you're doing really great, everything's good, and you just got into like some stinking thinking and you got into a rut or you let something get to you,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
acknowledge it and then just refocus your energy back on anchoring, which is going to be that your future self, or sometimes, like for me, it's just the
Uh-huh.
emotions of holding my daughter, right? What does that bring to
Yeah.
me? And I just hold that
Yeah.
energy until I feel it fully. So you're not trying to fake it. You're not trying to avoid the other sensation. It's just, I'm going to get into this
Right.
space and get into this vibe and really soak this in. And then once I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm there, then I'm good. I
Mm-hmm.
can let go. And then you'll notice you'll be like, all right, it's not too bad. I'm feeling a little bit better. You'll
Mm-hmm.
feel a little relief. And then you're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
now I can refocus. I can reshift my energy. Sometimes there's modalities you can use like meditation, breath work. I mentioned a couple other those already, but
Yeah.
like breath work, or
Mm-hmm.
I have a cold plunge that it's always sitting around 40 degrees. So
Mm-hmm.
if I can't if I'm in a state, I'll jump in the cold water for 3 to 5 minutes. And trust me, I'm not thinking the same thing when I come out. For people who don't have that, you can take a cold shower, very cold shower.
Right.
Um, I always tell my clients, like, if you're like really in a rut and you're overwhelmed and you're because sometimes we get too much into our head that we get paralyzed. I'm like, just jump in
Yeah.
the cold shower or throw some ice in a tub and jump in there and just for a couple minutes. And they're like, what do you mean? That's crazy. I go from a neurological perspective. From neurology, when you go into that intense cold,
Yeah.
trust me, your brain is not going to want to use energy to focus on whatever that is you were thinking about that's creating that emotion. I promise you, it's
That
not going to
is
focus
very
there.
true. I like
You
that.
go, you're gonna go into survival mode. The brain's gonna go, oh, you know what? There is intense cold hitting here, and blood's gonna be moving. It has to do all this other
Yep.
work. And so then when
Yep.
you're done with that, when you come out, there's a sense of
Mm-hmm.
relief because now you just went through a stressful situation, which was the cold, and then you come out
Yeah.
of that, and all of a sudden the body's like, okay, wow, yeah. And I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I've been doing, I've finally invested in a cold plunge, got it just last month, and I've done it, or it's been 3 weeks, and I think I've done it like 34 or 5 times. There was like a week I did it for twice a day. I do it every morning. I'm up at 5 something in the morning, and I'm jumping in 40-degree temps, and you talk about wanting to wake up. But the interesting thing is, every time I'm done, I feel refreshed. I feel energized because my
Yeah.
body is so cold. It's crazy how cold your body can get. Um, but I feel refreshed and energized to take on the day. And that's like my cup of coffee because I really don't need
Mm-hmm.
coffee anyhow. But that is just something
Mm-hmm.
to get my mind right. And then I go into an infrared sauna and I meditate. And so then
Yeah.
I can warm up, but at the same token, I can get into those deeper states. So there's a lot of
Right.
things you can do to recenter your nervous system. And it's really just what ends up happening. If I wanted to put everything in a nutshell for you,
Mm-hmm.
you lost your sense of focus to what your vision was. And all you really have
Yeah.
to do is just realign it back to what your vision was. And so doing those modalities will reset your nervous system to allow you to focus back there.
Right.
And,
Right.
but I really believe in, just in my own work, is that you never want to create
Mm-hmm.
resistance. That's why you want to accept the emotion of where you are. Because
Yeah.
sometimes people are
Yeah.
like in the positive thinking movement. They're all like, okay, just focus on the positive. Can't think negative. I can't tell you. You know what that means, right? So you have to focus here. And it's like, I get that. And I'm all for it. But, at the same token, you
Mm-hmm.
have to acknowledge the other side because all you're doing is creating resistance. And resistance is
Yeah.
the cause of all suffering. And whenever
Well,
you
I mean,
resist,
I'm sorry, whenever
no,
you
no, go ahead.
whenever you like embrace the negative and work on those, I mean, you solve problems and you become a better person. in the long run. I, yeah, I totally, I just feel like we need to talk about things. I mean, I came from an, an era where you didn't talk about anything bad, you know, you didn't talk about what so and so did to you. You didn't talk about why someone went away for 9 months and comes back. We never talked about any of those. And I can see today, especially family members that have went through so much trauma from that because they had kept it locked inside, for so many years. And so, yeah, I'm totally in favor of, let's talk about this. And it's not like saying that, what happened was okay, but you've got to find a place in yourself that it's safe for you to think about it and to, you know, I'm trying to glean, the good stuff from that experience so that you can either help yourself or help other people. So I hope that made some sense, but just
No,
trying to get
it
it in my
did. I
head.
mean, well, it's just like any traumas, right? Emotional, physical,
Hmm.
sexual, whatever it may be. It's one of those things where I share a lot. I've interviewed a lot of people who've had that, and it's at the end of the
Hmm.
convo, I always ask them, and of course, I have a feeling to know I can ask, and I'll get that
Hmm.
feeling that I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask this. I'm like, how much
Hmm.
was a blessing in your life? Now, where you are, I haven't had a no yet. They have not ever said no to me because
Hmm.
and it's fascinating because when they look back at their life, and I've had clients who've had stuff that they shared with me, and we
Hmm.
used it as a tool. We used it as something
Right.
to
Yeah.
learn from and grow from. And what did it
Hmm.
teach you? Rather than what it did to me and what it all this other stuff. No,
Yeah.
what did it
Yeah.
teach you? What did it give you? Where's the blessing in that? Where's the gifts in it? And I know this is
Hmm.
so weird to say,
Hmm.
but really, when you look back at look at any aspect, okay, you don't even have to look there. Just look at some of the dark moments of your life that you face, maybe a dark night of the soul, or just a challenging
Hmm.
moment. You look
Right.
back, there's a lot of good. And I had one time somebody tell me, you remember the good times in your life, but you remember the bad ones more. And I was like, it's funny. I'm thinking about my life as what I went through, and the most pivotal moments that
Yeah.
I'm like very proud of was my dark moments. So if I think about it in my
Yeah.
relationship, if I think about it in business or my
Hmm.
financial or my health, those dark
Right.
moments actually shaped me more and molded me into more who I needed to become. And
Hmm.
I wrote a whole book on this because it's very important to tap into
Hmm.
that darkness and let that mold you. But you get to
Yeah.
choose. This is why I want to tell people all the time. You are a spiritual alchemist. You get to choose what that means for you. That is the power you have. So no matter what has happened to you,
Yeah.
you get to choose what that means for you and what you want that
Right.
to mean for your life moving forward. And then whatever you believe, that is what it's going to be as long as you truly believe that.
Wow. I really love that, Dr. Vick. How can we find your book, Decoding the Matrix? I mean, is it like, a secret somewhere or is it on Amazon?
It is everywhere. You can find it on Amazon.
Okay.
I do have it in all three formats: ebook, paperback, and audiobook.
You have it on audiobook? Oh my gosh.
Yes,
Okay. I
it's so just a
will
fair.
be.
Oh, just go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. I just have to share a fair warning. If you haven't noticed already, I do talk a little faster. So
Oh, I can slow it down.
that's what I always tell people, because some people go listen on audio and they like to speed it up and Audible. And I told them, I was like, slow it down. Don't do your normal speed. They're like, why? I go, I actually tested this on my last book, and I speak. The average person speaks, I think, like 150 words a minute. I speak 175. So I'm like, just slow it down to a point 0.9. It should be
Yeah.
roughly normal talking if you like that. If you like the speed, or
Yeah.
if you like speeding it up, just leave it the where it is.
That's so funny that you said that because I'm listening to another audiobook and the author speaks very slow. So I did speed his up just a tad. And I'm like, oh, this is very interesting now. Well, I'm so glad that we finally got to talk about this. And I'm just kind of blown away. I mean, like seriously. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to reading your new book, and congratulations on your new baby. And I can totally relate to just using, her as a focus to connect that with your vision and using it as a I don't know, mantra or something to move ahead. But so before we end, any last thoughts that you might have not have covered yet?
There was a lot we've chatted about, but I may have, what I'm going to say is probably something we've already covered a little bit, but
Hmm.
just never underestimate the true power of what you have, but also don't forget the universe, God, Allah, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
They're always loving and supporting you and giving you what you need.
right,
The
right.
universe is, I'll just say universe for now, but the universe is always there supporting and loving on you and giving you whatever that is that you want to experience,
Hmm.
and it's always bringing the things that you need, and it always has your back. And it's as humans, we are control freaks. We fear the
Hmm.
uncertainty,
Yep,
and
yep.
but in all reality, that uncertainty is where the magic of life is. The uncertainty is
Yeah,
where your dreams and your visions and everything's at. And the more we
right.
can start to trust ourselves, which is
Hmm.
also trusting in the universe or God,
Hmm.
the more we can do that, the more we can experience more uplifting lives. I don't know what I say. That doesn't sound right. But more,
Hmm.
living more fulfilled lives of what we choose.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. And I hope that we definitely can get together again in the future and hash this conversation out some more.
I would love to. I appreciate you having me on. I had a blast.
All right. Thank you.